Welcome back to another episode of CRMprov. I'm your host, Mickey Baines. Today we're jumping into part 2 of our conversation with Jeff Kallay, diving into the campus tour experience. We're going to start the conversation off talking a bit about differentiation amongst institutions and how you set your tour apart from others. And then we're going to dive in a little bit to his experience working at Disney and how that's influenced his work with campus tours. Enjoy the show. But there are a lot of times I have trouble distinguishing between all the nuance between institution to institution, right? And the visit is the tour where I can touch and feel and see and experience the difference. I need to find that because especially if you read on a website, if you read in the communications, the view books, whatever it is that's coming out, if you take the school name out, take out the colors and the mascot, what's left probably could be placed on a lot of other products. And so with residence halls and food options, I can touch and feel and start to break them apart. I don't know still how to do that very well from an academic piece. How well do we break apart, right? And see the difference school to school. I mean, yes, I can see the programs. If I'm a first-gen student, my parents may not understand the nuance between, let's say my son is interested in digital media. That can live in a bunch of different places academically on a campus. So differentiating between the colleges may or may not be all that easy to do. I can understand, okay, this one's got an arts focus, this one's got a business focus, this one's a marketing focus or an English focus, whatever. I can start to understand that some of that nuance. But if it's, I don't know, English literature, philosophy, if it's finance, how do we distinguish school to school and how that program is if I'm trying to focus on academics?
Yeah, and I think the problem is that families stress about that too and are asking an inappropriate question of what makes your philosophy program different from. You can't answer that question. No. You can't. It's the same thing when they ask a tour guide why you can't because you're not part of that culture. You're not a part of that community. You're not a part of that campus. So here's my take on this. Two things is I think that cost is swaying people and they lob off private schools because they're looking at sticker price, not understanding discount and net tuition revenue and all that. So I'd always advise people don't lob off the school for cost. Find that place where your child is going to thrive and that fit, right? But I think that ultimately, brands are mirrors, and we purchase based upon conforming self-image. And having asked 10,000 plus tour guides, why did you choose this school? Inevitably, 90% of the answers are, I visited campus and it felt right.
Yep.
So I think we have to first concentrate on the meeting middle of students for whom this feels right, not swaying people on the fringe. I need a family to get in a car after a campus visit and do one of two things. Great, love it, it's higher on my list, or not for me. But I think if we're authentic and real, they'll probably say, but you know who I can see would go here, would fit in this culture well? So I think there's first and foremost the fact that you are buying a slice of a community. And I'm just going to say this. Going away to college is an intimate product choice. Like a hotel. I travel a lot. I stay in hotels, right? And in hotels, you sleep, you might eat on your room service, you have body functions, you can be sick, and you're naked, right? I'm just going to say this because at some point, you need to ask, who do I want to get naked with? Because, right, either in a residence hall or locker room or what.
Correct.
Right? Like,
yes.
And so I think first, find that culture and fit. Then I think academics, I think outcomes are the way to distinguish yourself. Of 5 years or less, of outcomes of young alumni, of internships, and I think promoting those things are a great way. But I also think how many students change their major? Right? Everyone thinks major, and yet part of going away to college was that liberal arts core to discover what you like and what you should major in. And so I think that we stress so much about academics I have rarely had a student say, I chose the school because of its program. And even
Yeah.
like Ivy League schools of my clients. So,
And I wonder, is it even at the Ivy League? Maybe it's not because of that school, because of that program, and I'm sure there'll be some, but maybe not the majority. But it might be a tier of schools. You're going to choose Ivy League
right.
and find the best fit. You might find more selective, not Ivy League selective, but more selective in that tier, and then choose too selective all the way to less selective. And maybe that's part of it in there. And I think it changes at the graduate level, right? Because then you might see that where that really starts to change and impact things. So I don't want to completely discount that piece, but I think you're right at the undergraduate. And that's not, and again, when I'm thinking recruiting a student, nurturing a student, I don't typically start with academics at the lead. I do try to advise clients, try to find what the lead is in your inquiry form. How do we know what's most important to them? And then that's what you lead with. And so if it is academics, you do. But you don't have to start with academics, and let's start talking about other things they are interested in, right? So, and maybe it's not even program based. Maybe it's clusters of things that might make it easier from a content ownership and creation standpoint. If students are changing the major, I don't know enough about research to know if they're changing the major from English to biology, or if they're staying within the sciences when they change it. But that there are other things that knowing that type of information or creating that focus lets you better target what you do with your time. So I want to so I'm going to shift and put on my selfish hat. I'm going to put on my parental hat. Give me 3 things I need to be thinking about on these tours with my family.
Okay. Geography matters. And here's what I'm going to talk about. I think we're seeing the parsing of America, the divide of America is impacting college search. Students are lobbing off a school in a state because they have assumptions about that state.
Yep.
Okay.
And we've done that. That.
You might lob off a really great fit by saying every campus and come on.
Correct.
Like, I mean, go to any red state and there are blue enclaves, and they tend to be in cities, and they tend to border a college campus.
Yes.
Right. Yep. So you don't let geography limit your search.
Yep. We've eliminated and put back on. So we have corrected.
I was coming home from NACAC on Sunday morning and was just dead tired, and there was a family traveling. And I stupidly said what I do, and they begin to ask me questions about what schools to look at. So they wanted a well-known, smaller private. So I'm tossing out some schools in Texas, University of Miami, TCU, SMU. Oh, that's Texas. Oh, that's Florida. I'm like, where do you live? And they're like, well, we live in Decatur, Georgia, which is a liberal enclave where Agnes Scott College is and Emory. And I'm like, and yet but then Georgia. Right. So I take a nap because I'm tired. And the woman next to me had, every parent thinks they're an expert on the college search. And I checked out. So when we got up to get our luggage, I grabbed her bag and I said, right now, there's probably a young woman in the main line of Philadelphia looking at Emory University, but has checked it off its list because it's in the blue state of Georgia. I would hope that you don't allow geography to hinder your daughter from finding her best fit school. And she said, oh, that's really good advice. Okay. The other thing I would say is she said, oh, that's a really good point of view. So don't let geography hinder, and then don't over program geography when you go on your tours. So if you're going to Richmond, do you really need to look at the University of Richmond and Virginia Commonwealth? Because those are 2 very different schools.
Yes.
So I think what families do is they cram in geography.
Yep.
I mean, I get that in New York. What's the difference between Columbia and NYU, or DC with American, GW, and George Washington and Georgetown, right? I get that. But if that city doesn't matter to you, like I think of Boston and New York and DC do, don't feel obligated to go visit every school.
Every school.
Then I would say, if you look at Encora's research, if you look at Niche's research, and this is the one all my clients miss, is the location matters. And I think what I would say to you as a parent is don't over program. Be more strategic in the schools you fit and allow time to discover the location.
Yes.
Because that
Get a
matters
sense
as
of where
much
it
to the
is.
college experience as the campus. So
Yep.
maybe
And
instead
I
of
always think
rushing
about,
to
you know,
that
if you're,
next campus, you need to discover what's near campus and, you know, always ask a tour guide, where
yes,
should we go eat? And do a
good
drive
one.
around
Yep.
and a drive by and see the location. So that's my advice.
And so as in our trips, we do have, for us, fortunately, we have time built in to be able to do those
Good.
things.
But don't do
You
the
know,
Chamber of
yeah.
Commerce.
Oh,
Right? Do the
yes,
well.
yes,
That's my beef
yes,
with colleges is they talk
yeah.
they talk about their location from a Chamber of Commerce point of view instead
Oh,
of
okay,
from
yep.
a parent. Where's the nearest hospital? Right? And
Oh, yes, yes.
I
Parents
work,
are going to think that.
I work
Yeah.
both with Cornell and Ithaca, and I was on tour at Ithaca, and this mom was like, "Is there a hospital here?" I just want to say, "Oh my gosh."
Oh, is there a hospital? No, no, we don't. We
Where
have a
is the
yeah.
place that college students go for cheap,
Yes.
good food? That's what you
Yep.
need to go, right?
Yes. And how
Where's
good
the
is it?
party district,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
that's, yeah.
And well, to an extent, as a parent, because you're not going to assume or guess that your child would not ever partake in that. But you know, is it a drive away from campus? Is it a mile and a
Walk,
half walk,
walk
or is
from
it 3
campus.
blocks?
Do we walk? Is it well
Yes.
lit? Do we walk as a
Yes.
group, right? I
Correct.
mean, you
Yeah.
know, I have
That
some
matters.
clients that are classic college towns, and I love it on a Thursday night when I'm in my hotel room and I hear them all a little partied up, but they're in a
Yep.
group, right? And they're
Yes.
all walking as a group.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Jeff, this has been awesome. Thank you for carving out time to spend time with us and sharing this. This has
Did
been
we
fun. I'm
cover
sure
it
everybody's
all?
laughing with us. Yes. What's
Did,
that?
did we cover everything?
I believe we did.
Okay.
You know what? We didn't hit on Disney. That's what we missed.
Oh, okay. I
Why don't you give me
love.
2 stories about? Do you have 2 quick stories you can share about Disney about what it's like consulting on the dark side to the dark side?
Well, I mean, I've done a fair amount of corporate consulting on the side, world of
Yep.
Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A. Long story short is a board member on the board of trustee. I was at the Rollins College's 2-day
Yes.
board of trustees retreat,
Okay.
and the president of Walt Disney World is on the board of trustees. And so I did a generational presentation. He goes, "Come do this." So I did it for his team, and then the team, and then like their team.
Yep. It triggers.
Right. So
Yes.
the
Yes.
numbers kept growing. Right. So I'm doing the generational presentation, which is so much fun. And I'm just going to say this because you said we're getting in trouble. I no longer really allow time for questions on college
Okay.
campuses when I'm presenting to faculty because they are so contrarian and so surly. And I often want to say to them, do you read the same chronicle I read? Because you're clueless to the enrollment situation, yet because you have a PhD, you think you know how to recruit students. Disney people are the exact opposite. They bring the energy. They ask the most thoughtful questions. They keep me, there's 50 of them that come up to ask me questions after. They keep me, they're turning off the lights in the arena. So I love that corporate energy and positive and just thoughtful and smart. And they really want to take the knowledge I've shared with them and make it for a better guest experience, whatever that is in the Disney empire. So that's a lot of fun. And they're sending me out to Disneyland to do similar 3 days of retreats out there. So I'm excited about that. So it's a lot of fun.
Wow.
And as a kid, like you can see on the video, like I got my Disney, my monorail going through the Contemporary Resort Hotel. As a kid that grew up in Florida and went to Disney World 150 times, and it swayed my work, Mickey, to do what I do, right? Yeah. I mean, it's that
it has
and
to
the economy are part of why I'm a campus visit consultant. So it's a lot of fun.
So at the end of the day, I consider myself an experienced consultant, and I do a lot of work in CRM, but it's
All
about
about the
crafting experience, and that's what
We
you're
are
doing.
in the
You're an
experience
experienced
economy.
consultant. Yes. Yes. And that's, how I really consider myself. Have you taken anything you've learned from your time with Disney to apply to campus visit experiences?
Not from this latest engagement with them, but
Yep.
from my experiences at Disney, the books I've
Yep.
read about Disney.
Yep.
I think I probably will more, but right now I think it's so much of what Disney wants me to share with their people. And so
Hmm.
I think it's that kind of knowledge.
Yep. I know
So
when I've been to Disney, I'm always, you spend time in lines, acknowledged, and they've spent a lot of time and put a lot of thought in trying to minimize that frustration and still to keep it a happy experience, even when you're in line. Those types of things are always kind of dripping into my brain to think, oh, in higher ed, what can this
yes,
be?
I think
Yeah.
but what Disney does with those lines is they do, and we've referenced this countless times. I mean, is they
Yep.
begin the narrative, right? The storytelling
Yes.
starts as you're waiting in line.
Yes.
So, what does that
Yes.
mean for the car ride to campus? Does that mean you should have an audio recording that families should be listening to,
Mm,
right? Or does
love
that
it.
mean you should have that audio recording a buffet they can choose from when they drive to your competitor, that they're learning more about you? So I think we do look at how does
Ooh,
Disney tell a story and how can we learn from that?
I love that, and and not so secretly because I'm saying this in the recording. My mind's already going. Okay, what are we going to record and talk about if I'm at an institution? How am I going to get that in the hands of a parent and child so that it's already ready to play in their car
Based
on the
upon the
ride to the
data
next
you
campus?
have.
Yes,
But isn't
I'm
that
already
what a
jumping. I love
C
it.
isn't that what a CRM should do? Right? I
Oh, it
think the
absolutely
problem,
should do that. It has the capacity to do it.
but
Right?
I
We have
think
to create the content, and we have to figure out how to know to deliver it, when to deliver it, and put the time in.
but I
And
think in
my
higher
team can do
ed,
that for a school, but a school will. Yeah, go ahead.
but I think in higher ed, they're obsessed with the management part of CRM when they should be concerned about the client or the constituent part and the
Yes,
relationship
the
part
relationship. Yes, and
in
there's
the
a
term CRM.
yes, right. It's the R. It's
But
the
it's
R,
the R.
right?
But you're right.
Yes,
Content is the problem, is creating that content.
yes.
Yeah,
We got to create the content. There are a
correct.
couple of, I think, barriers to the content's the biggest barrier, and I think the reason for the barrier with the content is we have at that level, you don't need a generalist. You need a specialist. And
Correct.
because we're so strapped with resources, we have all generalists,
Correct. Correct.
right? And I think what I would say to a school today, from a staffing perspective, one of your quote unquote generalists needs to be a non-typed content generalist. So
Correct.
video, audio, you need
Correct.
that today as one of your generalists.
And I will add to that is then we'd have to stop thinking of tour guides and ambassadors as campus tour people only, because they can assist that content creator in creating a lot
Yes.
of content that students
Yes.
and parents want to hear the voice of the student. And we
Yes.
have to trust our
And we have
ambassadors.
to correct. And there's this impression at an institutional level, we've got a brand that has to be, and all. Yeah, you got a brand. But think about this podcast. I do the CRMprov is my podcast. It is a brand, but it's connected to my work, but it's not connected to my company. So it's not going to be at that same letterhead, and it's not the same. And so what we're trying to produce content, and sometimes we get caught up with brand, and we put the red walls of tape around it, and we can't get there. There's a formula. One of the co-founders of HubSpot used, and he had it
Which
on a
I
slide
love.
at a keynote several years.
Love
I do too.
HubSpot.
Um, and so, and he was talking about trust, because when we think about relationships, we're building trust. His formula was trust equals the probability of what you're doing with and for me is good minus the probability of what you're doing for and with me is bad. The greater that number is, the greater trust I have, the more likely we can build a relationship together. And when you think about the communications you have during that experience in that tour, before and after it, it's all about relevance and being able to build the trust.
I
And so
agree.
if you are relevant and provide value, if I know that Jeff has been on this experience and Jeff asked 18 questions about the dining hall and I know food is important, what if I had some audio and could even do an audio tour about where to find the best food in town? We're going to drive down Main Street and you're going to take a right on First. Boom.
Oh,
And now,
absolutely.
yes.
And,
Right?
one of the questions we ask tour guides to do storytelling on is like their favorite place to eat off campus. And there's one of two. It's usually the cheap place they hang out with their friends. And if a family member or someone's coming into town,
when families coming into town, that they're going to take it. Yes.
Right? Like, absolutely.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because what you're
Yes.
what I agree with you. And a brand is a promise. And if you don't deliver that promise, you've lost trust.
Yes. Yes. But it can't be the gatekeeper of being able to have the right content to drive relevancy. Because
Correct.
if it's always about brand, it's too big, it's
Correct.
too grand, and it's
Correct.
not relevant.
Correct.
And that doesn't build that relationship. So now I think we can pause here. And I think what I'm going to do, because this is my longest recording of the season. We're at 48 minutes.
You'll need to edit
that.
No,
because I want to break it into 2 episodes. We're going to have part 1 and part 2.
Okay.
If that's all right with you. That's what we're going to do. That way we have it easily digestible. And let's do that because this is all good content. And I think the experience is so critical for especially at this undergraduate level. And even at the graduate level, I know a lot of graduate programs do these bring in students to campus. But that on-campus experience is important. Or maybe even virtual experience, but that experience is important. And then the data and connecting it and building a relationship is also connected to it. We've got a lot of good content. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining me, for spending almost an hour together.
Happy to
over
Thanks
2 good episodes here. Yeah. And so folks, if you need to find Jeff, echodelta.co is the website. Yep, you can find Jeff's got all of his information there. You can sign up for more information about tours. You can find that attitude, the parental Gen X parents attitudes instrument or the report.
It's right on the homepage.
And it's an easy download. I downloaded it. You can find it there. Great information there. Jeff, I see you on LinkedIn too sometimes. So folks, find Jeff on LinkedIn.
To, share my travels and something. I was about to post. I'm about to post about my hero Paul LeBlanc at Southern New Hampshire.
Oh, yes.
So he's been a highlight of my career. And so awesome. Easy to find Jeff Kallay, all one Kallay on LinkedIn. And campus visit is all that offering is outlined on Echo Delta. And
absolutely. And Jeff, I'm sure I'll find you somewhere on tour this summer, right? Or this year
for
conferences.
Along with Echo Delta for CIVSA, the Collegiate Information Visitor Services Association. I'll be at their Student Development Institute in early January, and then we're sponsoring, we're conference sponsor for their annual conference, which if you're in the campus visit or you're a VP listening to this, you need to get your campus visit people involved in that organization. CIVSA.org.
Awesome.
CIVSA.org.
CIVSA.org.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
You got it. Thanks for listening. Lots of fun.
Yes. And everyone else, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to another episode of CRMprov. Please, if you found this information helpful, like it, subscribe, give us comments, let us know what you want to know more about, and that will help drive our content in the future. But thank you again, and we'll see you next time.